Have you ever felt like someone didn't just hurt you, they aimed to? It wasn't a careless word or a bad day. It was calculated, precise, as if they studied you, then struck. If that rings true, you're not paranoid. You're perceptive. This kind of wound feels different because it is different. When someone intentionally damages you, not out of heat, but out of cold, detached contempt, the wound doesn't just cut, it echoes. And yet, we rarely talk about this kind of cruelty. Because admitting it means admitting someone once saw our humanity and chose to step on it anyway. But what if I told you this act isn't born purely from evil, but from something far more common and far more human? Carl Jung, one of psychology's deepest voices, introduced a concept that helps explain this darkness: the shadow. And today we're going to explore what happens when a person refuses to face their own darkness and begins projecting it onto you. In this video, we'll unpack why someone close is most capable of hurting you deliberately, how contempt builds silently, not suddenly, the psychological mask manipulation often wears, and how to reclaim your sense of self when it feels like someone tried to destroy it. This isn't about blaming, it's about understanding. And through that understanding, healing. Because revenge might feel satisfying for a moment, but peace, that lasts. Let's begin. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries a shadow. Not a villainous alter ego, but a collection of everything we suppress, deny, or find unacceptable about ourselves. It's not just anger. It's also envy, guilt, pride, insecurity, hatred, jealousy, even unfulfilled desires for power or control. The shadow is formed in childhood, when we're told, good kids don't get angry, or you shouldn't feel jealous, or stop crying, there's nothing wrong. We start burying those parts of ourselves. But buried doesn't mean gone. The shadow doesn't just sit quietly in the unconscious. It festers, it waits, and if unacknowledged, it finds ways to act, often without our awareness. And this is where things get dangerous, because when someone refuses to face their own pain, shame, or fear, they begin to project it outward, often onto the person closest to them, sometimes onto you. Instead of admitting, "I feel inadequate," they label you arrogant. Instead of facing their guilt, they call you judgmental. Instead of saying, "I'm afraid of being abandoned," they accuse you of being too needy. You become the screen onto which they project their repressed emotions. In this way, you're not just being attacked, you're being used. Not as a partner, not as a loved one, but as a mirror they're trying to break, because it reflects what they refuse to see. And once someone's shadow is in control, their actions become less about you and more about their war with themselves. A war you're now caught in. Unlike rage or sadness, contempt doesn't explode, it erodes. It's not dramatic, it's insidious. It begins with small sighs, eye rolls, silent treatments. It's the jokes that land just a little too hard, the compliments that have barbs hidden inside. Jung believed that contempt is the psychological mechanism that allows cruelty, because in contempt we don't see the other person as fully human anymore. They become less than, less deserving of kindness, of empathy, of forgiveness, and that shift from person to object is what permits intentional harm. You might have experienced this: a friend who turns cold overnight, a partner who begins to criticize everything you do, a family member who subtly undermines your voice at every dinner table. It doesn't begin with a slap. It begins with a story they start telling themselves about you. "She's manipulative and always plays the victim. They never really cared about me." And once that story settles in, their shadow finds a home and begins to justify every act of cruelty to come. Let me tell you a real story. Sophia, a retired teacher in her mid-60s, had spent years nurturing her younger sister Emily through heartbreaks, financial crises, and illness. She had always been the rock. But when Sophia finally pursued something for herself, a late-life art exhibition, Emily turned distant, cold, and then cruel. It started with little things. "She's full of herself now," Emily said behind her back. Then came the passive-aggressive comments. And eventually Emily spread lies that destroyed Sophia's relationship with mutual friends. Sophia was stunned. heartbroken, and like many do, she blamed herself. Did I brag too much? Was I inconsiderate? But with therapy, she came to realize her sister wasn't reacting to her art show. She was reacting to what it represented: a boldness, a joy, a creative spark that Emily had long buried in herself. Sophia's light illuminated Emily's shadow, and that was unbearable. This isn't just Sophia's story, it's a pattern. When your growth threatens someone's hidden wounds, their shadow may strike, not because you've harmed them, but because you remind them of everything they've abandoned in themselves. When someone damages you on purpose, the pain doesn't end with the act. It's what happens after that often causes the deepest confusion. They twist the story. They downplay what happened. They say you're being too sensitive, or worse, they suggest it's all in your head. This isn't just lying, this is gaslighting. The intentional distortion of your reality until you begin to doubt your instincts, your emotions, even your memories. Carl Jung saw gaslighting not as mere manipulation, but as a psychological attack on the very foundation of your selfhood. It creates disorientation, isolation, and eventually silence. Because if you're constantly told that your pain is invalid, you may stop expressing it altogether. This is part of what Jung referred to as the double victory. They hurt you and then make you feel guilty for noticing. In doing so, they win twice, first by inflicting the wound, then by convincing you that asking for help or even telling the truth makes you the villain. When this dynamic plays out over time, the victim begins to internalize the abuser's narrative. You start to think, maybe I am the problem. But you're not. You're simply being tangled in a web of projection, where someone's unresolved shadow is being spun around you, and you've been cast as the antagonist in a story that isn't even yours. And this is why one of the strangest patterns in shadow-driven relationships is this: they return. Not with remorse, not to repair, but to reopen wounds, often dressed as concern or closure. Carl Jung noted that once a person has projected part of their unconscious onto someone else, they remain energetically tethered to that person. You became the scapegoat, the container, the emotional dump site. So when you start healing, when you reclaim your boundaries, your clarity, your self-worth, it threatens the very framework they use to justify their actions. Your growth shames their stagnation, so they come back, not to lift you up, but to pull you down into the role they need you to play, the weak one, the confused one, the forgiving one. Don't fall for it. Jung taught that true growth creates internal order. That means when you feel calm, clear, and honest, even if you're alone, you're healing. You don't need to re-explain yourself to those who chose to misunderstand you. Your peace is your closure. So what now? When you've been hurt, truly hurt, the desire for justice burns hot. You may want revenge. You may want them to feel exactly what they made you feel. But here's the truth Carl Jung offered. What you resist persists. That doesn't mean you should accept mistreatment. It means the more energy you give to punishing them, the longer they live in you, because reactivity binds you to the shadow, both theirs and yours. So what's the alternative? Conscious response. This means speaking truthfully but without venom, protecting yourself without dehumanizing the other, releasing the need to be understood so you can fully understand yourself. When you stop reacting from pain and start responding from self-awareness, the shadow loses its grip. On both sides, you step out of the emotional battleground and into sovereignty. This is the true victory. It's not when they apologize. It's not when others see what they did. It's when your peace becomes non-negotiable, and at that point, no attack, no smear, no manipulation can stick, because your sense of self is no longer built on their perception, unprepared to carry the weight of your light. And when someone's shadow meets your strength, if they haven't done their work, they'll try to destroy the mirror you hold up. But now you see them clearly. And more importantly, you see yourself clearly. That's the healing. You don't need to harden, you don't need to carry bitterness, you just need to keep choosing clarity over confusion, truth over story, self-worth over performance. Carl Jung once wrote, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." Let that be your anchor. The betrayal didn't define you. Your response did. And if you've chosen awareness, compassion, inner stillness, then you've already won. Let's leave with this truth. You didn't deserve what happened to you, but you do deserve peace, clarity, and freedom from the roles others tried to cast you in. Carl Jung reminded us, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become, and today, you can choose to become someone who sees clearly, who no longer needs revenge to feel whole, who knows that clarity is closure and peace is power. Let them misunderstand you. Let them rewrite the story. You don't need to correct the narrative, you just need to live your truth. Because the ultimate transformation isn't about proving your worth, it's about remembering. You were worthy all along. If this video resonated with you, help it reach someone who needs this message. Like the video to support more content like this. Subscribe to the channel for weekly insights into healing, psychology, and personal power. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a step on your journey inward. Share your thoughts below with the words, I choose clarity. Let's build a community grounded in truth, healing, and emotional strength.